Your brain thinks everything is urgent for a simple reason. It believes that if you do not act now, something might go wrong. Not because the world is actually in danger, but because at some point, acting quickly meant safety, and the system learned it so well, that it keeps repeating this pattern to this day, even when it is not necessary, even when there is no threat, even when you are just sitting there, looking at an ordinary task. Maybe you have felt this before. The feeling that you need to solve something immediately. Reply now. Decide now. Act now. As if waiting were risky. As if resting were dangerous. As if stopping were irresponsible. And the most curious part is that, many times, you do not even know exactly why. There is no emergency. There is no real deadline. There is no concrete problem. But the body reacts. The mind speeds up. Urgency appears. Quietly. Constantly. Persistently. And over time, this starts to feel normal. So normal that you begin to live at this pace without noticing. You wake up already feeling like the day is behind schedule. You look at your to-do list and feel pressure. You receive a message and feel the need to respond immediately, even when it could wait, even when it would not make a difference. There is an internal rush, a subtle tension, a sense that time is always running, as if something were chasing you, as if there were an invisible demand. And this does not happen only on difficult days. It happens on ordinary days, calm days, days when nothing extraordinary is happening, and still the mind remains fast, alert, prepared, watchful. Because for the nervous system, urgency does not depend only on the situation, it depends on the internal state. If the system is on alert, everything feels urgent. If the system is tense, everything feels important. If the system is watchful, everything feels like it requires an immediate response. And that is where the wear begins. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet one. You keep doing your things, keep responding, keep solving, keep functioning. But something inside begins to get tired, not from the work, but from the vigilance. Because living in constant urgency requires energy, a lot of energy. It is like keeping an alarm turned on all the time. Even when there is no intrusion, even when the house is safe, the system keeps monitoring, keeps listening, keeps checking. And that, over time, becomes exhausting. Maybe you have noticed this, the difficulty of fully relaxing, the feeling that there is always something pending, the inability to simply rest. Even when the body is still, the mind keeps going, reviewing, thinking, anticipating, organizing, as if it were trying to prevent a problem that has not happened yet. And little by little, this anticipation turns into a habit of urgency, a habit of alertness, a habit of internal pressure, not because someone is demanding it, but because the system learned to function this way. For a long time, many people lived in environments where acting quickly was necessary, solving problems fast, avoiding mistakes, anticipating conflict, noticing changes in other people's moods, responding before things got worse. That kind of adaptation is intelligent, it is useful, it is protective. But when that pattern becomes permanent, something changes. The body starts to live as if danger were constant, even when it is not. Even when life is stable, even when the environment is safe, the system remains prepared, always ready, always attentive, always alert. And this creates a continuous sense of urgency, an urgency that does not come from reality, but from the system's memory, from accumulated experience, from learned patterns, because the brain does not clearly distinguish between past danger and present danger. If something was threatening before, it stays watchful. Even years later, even when the situation has changed. This explains why small things can feel big. An unanswered message, a simple appointment, a small task. Everything seems to carry weight. Everything seems urgent. Everything seems to demand immediate action. Not because it is important, but because the system is sensitive, on alert, prepared. And when the system is prepared all the time, rest becomes difficult, because rest requires safety. And safety is not just the absence of problems. It is a feeling, a perception, an internal state. If the body does not feel safe, it does not relax. It stays alert, monitoring, observing, waiting. And that silent waiting consumes energy. Energy that you often do not notice, until the fatigue appears, a strange fatigue. A fatigue that does not come from physical effort, but from mental effort, from constant vigilance, from continuous attention, from silent urgency. You wake up tired, you end the day tired, even when you have not done anything extremely difficult, because the exhaustion does not come from the task, it comes from the state of alertness, from the state of urgency, from the state of readiness. And that state affects everything. It affects concentration, it affects mood, it affects patience, it affects the ability to enjoy simple moments. Because when everything feels urgent, nothing feels calm. There is always something to solve, something to respond to, something to organize, something to prevent. And that feeling creates a cycle. You feel urgency, you act quickly, you keep the system active. An active system creates more urgency, and the cycle continues, without pause, without rest, without awareness, until something inside begins to slow down, not by choice, but by necessity. Energy drops, motivation weakens, the mind becomes tired, and then confusion appears. You start asking yourself, why am I so tired? Why does everything feel difficult? Why can't I relax? And many times you interpret this as weakness, as lack of discipline, as lack of organization. But maybe the problem is not lack of ability. Maybe it is excess alertness. Because the human body was not designed to live in a constant state of urgency. It was designed to alternate between action and rest, between alertness and relaxation, between effort and recovery. But when urgency becomes permanent, that alternation disappears. Everything becomes action. Everything becomes response. Everything becomes responsibility. And rest stops being natural. It becomes difficult. It becomes uncomfortable. It starts to feel wrong. Maybe you have felt this. The guilt of resting. The difficulty of stopping without feeling unproductive. The need to always be doing something, even when you do not have to. This happens because the system associates movement with safety. As long as you are doing, it feels like you are in control. As long as you are solving, it feels like you are preventing problems. As long as you are busy, it feels like you are protected. But that protection has a cost. The cost of energy, the cost of attention, the cost of peace of mind. And over time, that cost becomes visible. In the form of fatigue, in the form of irritability, in the form of difficulty concentrating, in the form of feeling overwhelmed, even when life seems normal. Because the problem is not life, it is the internal state, a state of constant alertness, a state of continuous urgency, a state of silent vigilance. And perhaps the most important insight is this: your brain is not trying to sabotage you, it is trying to protect you, it is trying to guarantee safety, it is trying to prevent risks, but it is using an old pattern, a pattern that made sense in the past, a pattern that worked before, but that may no longer be necessary now. And when this understanding appears, something changes. Urgency begins to lose strength, not because you forced it, but because you understood. You understood that not everything is an emergency, that not everything requires an immediate response, that not everything needs to be solved right now. And that realization creates space, a small space between impulse and action, a space where choice becomes possible, where waiting does not feel dangerous, where resting does not feel wrong, where slowing down does not feel irresponsible. That space is the beginning of change, not a radical change, not an instant transformation, but a gradual change, a quiet change, an internal change. Because the system learns through experience. It learns when it realizes it can stop and nothing happens, that it can wait and nothing falls apart, that it can rest and remain safe. And little by little, the state changes, the body relaxes, the mind slows down, urgency decreases, not completely, but enough. Enough to breathe more calmly, to think more clearly, to live with less pressure. Maybe deep down, the question was never, why does everything feel urgent? Maybe it is another. What inside you is still trying to protect you, as if every moment were an emergency?